So we're going to be on this side, and we're going to come up the backside. So we'll have to kind of take a look around because we're not going to be coming into it generally from that direction. But you can see the amount of throw on that fault. This is the Dresbach Formation. It's an old Cambrian sandstone. And this is the Franconia. It's often called the Franconia green sands. It's green because it has this glauconitic, it's a glauconitic sandstone. Glauconite is a clay mineral that's kind of a bluish green color. It's got what in it? It's a bluish green color. What do you think? What's that? Glaucopene is a different mineral.
Like fluoride?
No, it's a mineral. Glauconite is a rock. It's got, like glaucopene as a mineral constituent. But what makes a mineral greenish, bluish green?
Just like.
What element? Copper. There it is. Copper. Copper. Okay. So, what makes rocks red?
Iron.
What makes rock black? Magnesium. This is like huge brush strokes. Huge brush strokes. But when you're doing drive-by geology, you see red, iron, you see black, dark gray, magnesium, you see greens, blues, I think copper. But then up here into the St. Lawrence, I think the St. Lawrence is Ordovician, and then the rest of this is tradition. So they're showing it here with a very gentle fold. That's very similar to what we see in far western Pennsylvania, these really low amplitude folds. But this is even lower. Okay, this is kind of exaggerated. It's mostly horizontal. It'll present as horizontal with just about everything we see today. Don't forget about this upper mantle of till. We'll be walking on glacial sediments when we're up on top of Barn Bluff. And here is the glacial picture. So there's the Laurentide ice sheet. And centered in Hudson Bay, that's where it was the thickest. It was flowing outward. They're showing this at, I don't know if this is 10,000 years ago, because that glacial extent is really weird right there. Because they're not, it doesn't even go down to Lake Michigan. So this might be like 10,000. 10,000. Right. So but there's like a perfectly straight line, so I don't know what's going on right here. But it did go all the way down and form Moraine State Park between Edinburgh and Cal. But you can see the different lobes. And again, this is Minnesota. We were over in Wisconsin. So think about in Wisconsin, we had a lobe that came down like this, and then the Lake Michigan lobe. So right here is that driftless area. So anyway, that's the story. Oh gosh, they give you a whole deal. This is the St. Peter we're going to see as we're driving out of here. In fact, okay, so this is a good spot to do it. This is what we're going to see today. These four are what we're going to see this morning on Barn Bluff. The Franconia Formation, the St. Lawrence, the Jordan Sandstone, the Prairie du Chien, which is mostly dolomite.
You're good.
As we're driving, though, keep an eye out for a very light colored, even to white, very loose, friable sand. And if you look at the hillsides where it's exposed, you'll actually see what just looks like sand piles in the talus. That's the St. Peter sandstone. Very, very friable, breaks apart. It's very poorly cemented, and it's quarried in mostly northwestern Illinois, and it's used in fracking for it's frac sand. So they crush it up, and they don't have to do a lot of processing because it doesn't have a lot of cement in it, and they power it down the wells with the high pressure water, so it opens up the fractures in the shale, and then instead of the fracture's just collapsing back down. Now they've got all this sand in there. So it holds the fractures open and allows the gas to escape. So that's, if you hear the term frac sand, that's what it means. And the St. Peter is where we do, where we get most of it from. So you'll see big train, just train car after train car full of sand. That's what it is. And then the Platteville and the Decorah Shale are late, those are late Ordovician and really fossiliferous. So I'm really, really hopeful we're gonna actually get to stop and see the Decorah Shale, because it's got, like, I mean, it doesn't matter, wherever you go, there's just crinoids everywhere. So hopefully we'll see some of those as we drive out of the valley today. But bugs, it's like that throughout. This is not the really good stuff, but this is a good example of bugs. Any guesses what that might be? Yeah. So if you have limestone being deposited, what would be another interbed that you might see in deeper waters? Chert. Yeah, that's a chert layer.
Number 2, you need to scratch it.
Bugs. Yeah, so that. Okay, so how do you know the difference between limestone and goldstone?
Limestone's reactive, goldstone.
Goldstone does react.
You have to powder it
Yeah,
first.
you have to powder it. Yeah, so if you scratch it, it has, well, what's the purpose of scratching? No,
Getting to the surface that hasn't been weathered.
no. If you powder it, what are you doing? Yeah. What's that? No, you're creating surface area. Yeah, you're exposing it to more surface area. So the reactivity is low, but your reactivity to surface area, right, increases as you create more surface area. Yeah, there it is. Not much, but it does. So anyway, this is the Moniata, or Prairie du Chien. And so you can kind of get an idea of the consistency. What would you call a set of beds? I mean, it's obviously bedded, but from here to that bedding plane fracture, it doesn't have much bedding. What would you call that? Massive. Good. Yeah, so you would describe that as massive. If you were taking notes for this, you would, say it's approximately this thick. Inner beds of orientation, yeah, mostly horizontal from your perspective. So actually, maybe that's something we should think about, is how would you describe this outcrop?
Think about what everybody just did when he asked that. Did you move closer or further away?
Further away.
So outcrop description starts further away and then moves towards the outcrop.
What's the darkened stuff? Is that just from the weather?
Yeah, yeah. That's just a weathered surface.
So you'd say like mostly massive at the bottom, like the horizontal small layers.
Mm-hmm.
How do you say it when there's smaller, like it decreases its layers? Yeah, like layers are starting to form.
Yeah, so you say it's massive in the bottom 10 feet, and maybe you kind of break it down, and you say bedding plane fractures get more frequent as you move up. There's this, but also
in the middle that's more fractured.
good,
more
yeah.
irregular.
Notice there's a section there in the middle, so you would say maybe that section is a little bit more regularly fractured in 3 to 4 inch bed sets, and then above it gets a little bit more massive again, and then above that, that the stuff at the top is really flaggy, but that's probably just because it is being weathered. It's probably like regolith up there, covered in that mantle of glacial sediment up at the top.
Due to like the roots kind of growing down.
Yeah, that's how regolith develops.
So how is there like an average thickness where people consider like that layer to be massive? Because in field he was like, okay, if it's greater than 4 inches, it's massive.
I would say
Maybe it just depends on what.
I would, if I were going to use that generalization, I would probably say it has bedding sets that are massive,
Okay.
about 4 inches thick, and that section, that middle section is, it still isn't like finely bedded. So you could say it's massively bedded in 3 to 5 inch bedding sets. But down here, I mean, that one unit is really massive. I'm really curious what this blobby stuff is here. There is a really odd horizon in here. There's some iron.
I was gonna say, it just looks like a thin, random layer.
I know, I was just wondering. And then would you say, like, with, like, lots of is that what you said, bugs?
Bugs, yeah.
Do you include that?
And they also show
When you're describing?
Yeah.
individual mineral scale.
So what would cause a layer of chert to form? Is it just like deeper, or?
patterns.
Yeah, it's some sort of change in
For the same
chemistry of the water, or it could just be that it was a deeper time, so sea level rose a little bit and then it came back down.
Okay.
Because remember, we've got that CCD, the
Yeah.
carbonate compensation depth.
But it's a
How many of you are familiar with the CCD? Okay, so if you've not heard the CCD, that is the carbonate compensation depth. So limestones are often formed from microscopic plankton that live up in the photic zone with boreams and apocalypse, and they die, and their shells fall through the water column to the seafloor, and they collect and pile up over time. But if the water is too deep, or the conditions are right for shells to be dissolved, then you don't get deposition, right? Because now it's back in the dissolved phase, and oftentimes that's where you get chert layers forming. The silica is always in the water at low concentration, but under certain conditions that might be all you have. So siliceous ooze has an accumulation rate of like 1 millimeter per 10,000 years. So if you're not depositing calcareous ooze, you are probably depositing siliceous ooze. And then that forms chert.
is calcite and limestone more or less soluble in hot water, warm water.
That was our last quiz.
Thermodynamics. That's the short story. Yeah, calcite is more soluble in cold water. That's why you don't get limestone deposition in the polar regions. So those
Oh, this would be a good panorama spot.
I haven't been getting rid of it.
you got one at the top of the hill yesterday.
I haven't been getting rid of it.
What a shot.
Like it doesn't to make it match up. Still has like big, you'll have like a jutting line.
Yeah, sure.
With like the river on it in the background.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
Say cheese. Here. Do you want me to take another one after this? I took 3, so if there's not a good one, let me
I
know.
want to take another one just because I look weird on it.
Okay.
I'll change my, I don't know, my stare.
Ready?
Yeah. Do I look better? I don't know.
You're cute. Shut
I
up.
think you look good.
Can we get one more, please?
Oh,
One
yeah, sure.
more. I can. I'll make it good.
Why don't we
Here.
I'll kind of point some things out, give a little overview.
I don't know, it just looks a little like a little.
It's just more erodible, so it's chemically eroding, so that's probably more limestone.
Yeah, I asked them if they could like fix this one same time.
Oh, yeah.
Just all.
and so then you look at it like why you can also see it's not that's really interesting stuff. It's really a do your best to find observations and feel, and then you collect samples and then you go through it. Yeah, you really want to emphasize observations. Is that one of the weirder ones to get into?
And it would be really hard.
John, you should go do the Titanic thing with that on the corner.
The other way around. That's because there was a unmapped. Who's going to hold it?
Mitch, you got to hold him for the Titanic photo.
Super weird looking. So we were mapping and just found like this big zone.
He's no fun.
That was weird.
That like screw core research projects.
Because the point of research isn't to verify your expectations, it's to collect observations and interpret them.
So if you look off in that distance, that is Wisconsin. Okay, so the flat terrace that you see there is glacially scoured and then redeposited with till, mostly ground moraine. There's all kinds of stuff going on. It's a really large area, but you see how flat it is. That's kind of that glacial planing. The valley here is the Mississippi Valley, but it was formed initially by glacial meltwater. How many of you have heard of Glacial Lake Agassiz? No. Glacial Lake Agassiz was up in Canada, and this Minnesota River Valley into the Mississippi River Valley and then south was the outflow of this massive proglacial lake. So you have the ice sheet that depresses the crust, and off the front of the ice sheet, because you're kind of sagging the crust down, the water collects in these huge water bodies, and Lake Agassiz was a really big one, and so it would have these massive outburst floods. And, so this valley is really, really large compared to the modern day river, but the Mississippi River has been carving away at it too, and doing its lateral migration and meandering. So you see that there's all kinds of backwater channels. That's because it's really a very big valley with still a big river in it, but the river is still kind of underfit for how big the valley is. So the water just kind of fills in the low areas, and you have these they're not stagnant, but almost stagnant backwater areas. So from a habitat perspective, this is just a great study in microhabitats and connectivity of surface water features, and how you get transfer of organisms from flowing water to still water. There is a navigable channel, and when you're on the river, it's just like the Mon. For those of you at Cal, the Edinburgh students, I don't know if you're familiar with the navigation for the Army Corps of Engineers, but they have green buoys and red buoys, and that marks the navigable channel. And then they have to dredge periodically, so scour out the sediment that collects over the years. And so you may have noticed the giant sand pile about 10 miles, 20 miles south of here as we were coming in. That's not a natural feature. That's dredging sand that's just piled up so that they can keep the navigable waterway open for the barge traffic. Because if you can imagine, this is the barge traffic coming from Minneapolis, St. Paul, going all the way down through Wisconsin, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Arkansas, Louisiana, Kentucky, Tennessee. All of the goods that are transported and sent out through the New Orleans port, this is the main thoroughfare. So if anything comes in to New Orleans, comes up the river, anything that needs to go out, goes down the river. So the barge traffic is just insane.
Has anybody been to New Orleans? It's crazy watching the barges.
It's one of the busiest ports in the world.
It's wild.
So there is a navigable channel, and I can't really tell from here. It isn't the widest one. I know it's not the widest one. When we get up on top of Barn Bluff, we'll be able to see it. You'll actually see the buoys.
I saw a boat closest to us.
Yeah, but that might have been, in this one? Yeah, that might actually be it, but I saw a boat way over there, so I'm not sure. But the other thing is, you might have noticed that the river got really wide yesterday.
Yeah.
That's because the Chippewa River, coming out of Wisconsin, has a ton of sediment in it, because it's pulling all the sediment out of the sand plains of northern Wisconsin from the outwash, and it just dumps it. It's a smaller river flowing into a larger river, so it just dumps all that sand as it enters the slower moving big Mississippi, and it creates a delta. Actually it's a river delta in a river, and that dams up the Mississippi. So this large body of water is formed, a widening of the Mississippi River. That's called Lake Pepin. So Lake City down south of here is on the northwest corner of Lake Pepin. Now there's a lot of manufacturing and things like that occur along here. Just outside of our hotel, there were grain elevators. I don't know if you guys noticed that. That was for filling the barges. Right here is NSP, Northern States Power. So that is a power plant, and it used to be coal, but I don't see any coal piles. So it might have been retrofitted for something else, maybe natural gas.
Well, the sign down there, I think it said steam tower.
It's all like it's all steam. So you burn coal to make steam, you burn natural gas to make steam. But there used to be huge coal piles down there, and I don't. So I'm maybe it's decommissioned. I don't know. But also there's a place just south of town called USG where they make ceiling tiles by melting down rhyolite and sending it through these blower machines. I got to tour that one time. It was one of the coolest things. And then there's a cement production just next door to that. So within like a mile stretch, there's grain, energy, infrastructure, construction, all part of that corridor. And the cool thing is, like, USG hires geologists to go out and quarry that rhyolite because it's a very specific rock chemistry that they use to make ceiling tiles. You know, cement factories are looking for very specific limestone, and so these are resources that geologists are in charge of finding. Okay, so we're gonna go back down, and then we're gonna head over to Barn Bluff. And I know that's a lot of arm wavy kind of local stuff, but what questions do people have about the rocks? Yep.
You said that in parts of the Mississippi River, as you can see down there are pools can become almost stagnant. What types of life would you find in those almost stagnant, I guess you could call them microbiomes?
Well, in the channels, you get a lot more rough fish, like a lot of catfish, and yeah, carp and things like that. In the pools, there still are those things, but it's a little bit better fishing in the backwaters. Because there's I can tell you where the high water marks are. It's insane. I lived here, well, 1993 was a really, really bad flood in the Mississippi Valley. 1997, it was another really bad one, and I lived here for that one. And the parking lot of the hotel flooded. It was up, yeah, and I'll show you when we get there.
When we were driving, there's some farms in the valley, where it looks like there's it would have risen to. So that's sweet.
It's a really interesting story for insurance.
Yeah.
So you guys know in 1993, when the flood occurred, people had flood insurance, and they made claims, and the insurance companies had to pay out those claims because people's homes were destroyed. So what happens when the insurance company runs out of money?
They don't give out anymore? File
Oh,
bankruptcy?
wouldn't that be something?
Raise their rates.
Okay, but they still have to pay money out to the people that have claims. So you're right, they do raise their rates, but what about the people that have claims still outstanding? Where's, yeah, you should think about it. This is really important. Okay, where does the money come from? It gets paid. The government. The government pays it. You pay it. You pay it. Right, you pay it. Because, so State Farm and you know, I don't know, I have State Farm. What other insurance companies are there? Yeah, Liberty, all those things. They make money off of you as a payer, and then they pay out claims like they're supposed to, but if there is a major disaster, they don't have enough money to cover it all, and then the government has to step in and cover it. But those companies don't pay it back. They don't pay it back to the government. You think when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans? No, they can't. Okay, so after 1993, the federal government paid all of these claims throughout this valley for all these destroyed homes. 4 years later, it happened again. So after the 1997 flood, the federal government came in and said, all right, we're done. If you live within these bounds, you can no longer get flood insurance. So now State Farm can't even, this is where Jessica's raise your rates thing comes in. State Farm can't even sell you insurance because they can't set the rates high enough. And the federal government said, all right, no flood insurance within these boundaries. And so people that had it are grandfathered, but you can't get a new policy, you can't make changes to your policy, and that means anyone that wants to build or move into that area, they can't. So what happens eventually is those places become abandoned in a good way, and then we can reclaim that back to nature and make it a part of the buffer system that was the Mississippi River wetlands and backwaters. But it's one of the reasons why geology is so critical in water resources, because 93, 97, what is happening with flooding over the last 30 years? Yeah, flooding is increasing. And the timing is changing, the severity is changing due to climate change. And so all of those flood maps and the boundary that the government set was based on 50-year-old data. They have to re-establish those boundaries using climate change relevant data. And so, not to get political, but this is why it's a problem when your government officials don't believe in climate change, because if the USGS and the Army Corps of Engineers are saying, all right, this is the 100-year floodplain now based on climate change, and they want $100 million to enforce that, and the Congress says, climate change isn't real, you get nothing and like it. Now you're stuck, right? And the people that ultimately pay the price are the ones that live in the valley. So again, jobs. That is a geology job, is insurance risk assessment based on landslides, flooding, all of those things.
A buddy of mine that got a master's in, I don't remember what he was doing, geomorphology, that's what he does, is assess insurance policies.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating work because you get to do modeling and these scenarios where you test, all right, if we have this much rain, what's that going to do?
It applies for flooding, it applies for landslide assessment, building permits.
Why don't they do that for like hurricane-prone areas like New Orleans or like Florida?
Great question. It's coming. It's coming. So did you guys hear the question? Why aren't we doing that for hurricane-prone areas? It's coming. The insurance companies, you know that Ian, you paid for Ian, and you will pay for Ian for 20 years. And the insurance companies with the state of Florida are trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? And the state of Florida right now is saying, well, climate change isn't real, so we can't really do anything. We can't really do anything about changing the rules, at least using climate change as a justification, which kind of handcuffs the insurance companies and it handcuffs the scientists. Because if you can't talk about climate change, how do you say, well, we need higher seawalls, we need to move roads, we need to abandon some of these barrier islands? Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Florida man says climate change isn't real. Standing in water. All right, so let's go down and get back in the vans. We're gonna drive to the bottom over there. Got some maps. Yep. Oh yeah.
So. It's really still well.
Okay. And then is what?
Minnesota.
Michigan, Upper Peninsula.
Iowa.
Illinois. Good. Okay. Excellent.
Lake Superior.
Good. Lake Superior. This is the driftless area. Okay, so it's like this window. This was all glaciated around it, and this is the stuff that wasn't. So I just want to give you some perspective on like where we are. So we're kind of we're like there, and the Twin Cities is about here. It's like a megalopolis, and so the other. Chippewa River, there's the Manitowish waters, Flambeau flowage, and the Chippewa River basically comes down like this. And so you have all of this glacial sediment, and like up here, this is the Northern Highland Lakes region, so I did my graduate work there. But it is really it's one of the most concentrated areas of lakes in the world, and there's all of these tiny little lakes. They're good night. There's dogs all hanging out the windows. Okay. So this is all, it's all sand. It's like a giant sandbox up here. So it's this big outwash plain sitting on top of a ground moraine. These are, a lot of these are kettle lakes. There are some small moraines in here, some small terminal moraines, but it's mostly sandy. And so the Chippewa River kind of winds through like this, and it carries all that sand. And as you get down into this area, the channel turns into a multi-channel, but it has the islands within that multi-channel course have vegetation on them, established trees and vegetation. So what kind of a stream is the lower Chippewa?
Braided?
Denver.
Oh.
No, that's the network. So there's straight, meandering, braided, and there's a fourth one.
It's the fourth one.
Oh, you're close. That's the one, but that's not how you say it. It's anastomosing. Anastomosing.
there's an
So
island.
it's braided with permanent or semi-permanent islands. And braided channels and anastomosing channels consequently form when there's just too much sediment for that stream to continue to move. So it just kind of like moves it around as best it can. And in anastomosing, what happens is a braided channel essentially kind of just settles in to a certain flow volume, and the islands establish, and then you get vegetation growing on them, which kind of holds them in place then. So that is kind of proof of how much sediment has come out of the Chippewa. So I'm going to do a little zoom out here. And the reason I'm showing you this is because when we get to Barn Bluff, you're going to see Lake Pepin, and I want you to kind of get a feel for that. So the Chippewa River comes in like this, all its anastomosing channels. And the Mississippi is really big, and it's coming through like this. This is moving pretty fast, the Chippewa. This is the Mississippi. Deeper and slower. And so what happens when faster, shallower water enters deeper, slower water? What's that? The suspended load drops out. Yeah, so all that suspended load here drops out. And so what has happened over the years, I shouldn't have done it in blue. Blue is water.
Looks like a little sand table that we looked at.
Yep, exactly. So a delta is built out like this from the Chippewa, and that constricts the flow of the Mississippi to only being able to go through there. And so the response of the Mississippi is backing up the water, and when you back up the water, you raise it a little bit, but raising it doesn't really satisfy here, because that would just like blast everything out. And what it did, because it's so flat and wide, it just widened the river. So there's no backwaters down at Lake Pepin. All the backwaters are flooded. So Lake Pepin is just this really wide section of the Mississippi River that essentially fills the full width of the glacial valley from Lake Agassiz outflow. Okay, so when you were coming through Lake City and saw that really wide part of the stream, that's what you were looking at, is essentially like flooded valley, but it's like permanently flooded. Okay.
Isn't there also a dam at the one end we passed? There was a big dam.
Yeah, so there are lock and dams. In fact, you're gonna, well, I don't think we might be able to see it from Barn Bluff. So there's a lock and dam upstream of us, and there's another one downstream beyond. But the one downstream is like here, beyond Lake Pepin. It is not why Lake Pepin is there. So that's a really good point. Yeah, the lock and dam system is pretty extensive throughout the corridor. Everybody good with that? You know where you are geographically. So we're gonna go today like that. Okay, so we're just cutting across to the far west. Sioux Falls is basically on the border of Minnesota and South Dakota. All right, so let's just take a look at Lower Quarry. I only stopped here because I've never been here, so I wanted to see it. But again, it looks about like the same stuff, so we can just take a look at the rocks, and then we'll
There's some
head out.
Very blocky layers.
Yep, you can see the sill on top here.
No, I'm
Perfectly accurate. Got stuff somewhere.
Yeah. I know, I was like mid-sentence. That is worthy of an interruption. So gross. I would rather see any other litter.
So we should go that way. Everyone's going this way. I'm going that way.
There's only 2 people over there. That way?
We can. Most of our stuff was packed. Yeah, I didn't really have to do it. Yeah. I just literally not passed out whenever I hit the bed, but I was like, yeah, I'm not moving.
Thank you.
Oh, these are steep.
And slippery.
Oh, steep and slippery. That's a great combination.
Yeah.
You good?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Good catch. Good catch.
I'm clumsy on a good day, so honestly, I would love to tell you that I'm surprised, and this would be unusual for me, but it's really not. This is pretty standard for me.
Yeah, the CCC needs to do better on their staff.
Yeah. The CCC. The
People that they said build all the staff.
civilian something.
Yesterday they should have made them a little less steep.
Yeah. This one's too.
Like, no offense.
It's okay. I'm pretty sure they're all dead by now.
Yeah, they are.
I'll make some new ones. I'll join.
You'll make some new ones.
Yeah, I'll join in. I don't care.
I love this area.
There should be a warning. Those stairs are slippery. Don't slide.
They seem to be going down just fine.
Maybe it's just me then. That's all.
I almost slept.
I think you just
There's a nice barn bluff picture.
Is that where we're hiking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the bluff that he had set.
He was acting like it was like this tall.
Oh yeah, it's not bad.
Oh yeah, it's not bad, eh?
Compared to yesterday, it's not. It's not. There's no way it's gonna be nearly as bad as yesterday.
I think they said it's 300 feet.
I should go with the stratigraphy map right now.
This is the truth.
I have service over here.
Strat map.
Is that what he's making me draw?
Probably.
Probably.
Look at the guy down there. That's tiny from up there.
You can see so far into the distance here. I'll move so you can see.
Oh, heck yeah.
If it wasn't foggy, you'd probably be able to see more too.
No.
Are you okay?
Are you okay? No.
I can see the layer.
No.
Yeah, I was gonna just...
Me casually.
It's like gonna put it on in the car. I don't know, maybe I'll be there. Oh, that's gonna be really cool fun to watch too. I told her not like the way I thought it was going to be, that's for sure. Well, yesterday on the second waterfall hike we did, I was close to the mountain. Oh yeah, you saw that, yeah. So I'm like, I'm clumsy, like this is how it is what it is.
I might have been in front of you because I tried to
Yeah, because I like, my hands flailed and I literally smacked Lauren straight in the ass. And Jake like caught me like right on my back and kept me from falling completely into the water. Yeah. If you missed you a kick in the mountain over there.
Is it worth?
No.
No.
Trees will go see you. You can say the same thing.
Don't trust you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Don't trust me, trust her. Yeah, I got you. Pretty smart, yeah. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
So what's your plan? Like, you'll drive back.
I'm gonna just leave John to his own devices for now.
Anything new up there?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
Doing what he do.
I don't think the buddy system's like super important right now, but
Yeah.
in like 2 or 3 days.
What's the buddy system? When no one's supposed to go by themselves. Where? If you, like on a trail, if you get behind someone's like stays. Oh.
Have you guys ever seen the movie Heavyweight?
Like if you.
He's like in the water.
I think that's just natural selection. Personally, if you tell me Charles Darwin's real, I mean.
I do want to get a rock from this lower quarry, as it is a big lake. Or at least the ads.
Dr. Frederick. There's more of that red on the rock over there.
Yeah.
I have some rough steps too.
Like that.
I slid down the steps a little bit.
Oh.
They're pretty steep, but they were pretty slippery.
She did like the limbo thing.
I was like, you're like half crawling. I didn't quite fall, but I definitely tried to. My butt did not hit the stairs.
The same stuff Dr. Frederick. Yeah, I'm almost wondering if it isn't Jasper.
Because there's, you see the chert line right at about Connor's, right at the top of his background right now. Yeah, so then he's coming up. No, up. Right there, yeah. So right where his hand is, going to your right.
That's a. Is that the chert layer?
Yeah.
Hey, I got a rock hammer. Who wants to bust it out?
I'm mucking about.
Pretty cool though.
Well, maybe not all. Whatever he was looking at before was, but you can see there's graffiti here. Yeah. Well, so at the last one there was that red stuff. There was also blue. And it was just paint. It's paint. Over there was glitter. Oh, it's glitter. I don't know why it's there, but somebody's sprayed glitter on it. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
We would inspect someone else's rock. That's disrespect.
So, real quick, is everybody familiar with the distinction between limestone and dolostone? What's the difference between limestone and dolostone? Like chemically?
Dolostone only reacts with acid when it's powdery.
Why? What's the chemical difference? Right. What's limestone made of?
Calcite.
Calcite, which is
CaCl3.
CO3. What's dolomite or dolostone? Dolomite's the mineral, dolostone's the rock.
MgCO2. Like Ca, comma Mg and CO3.
2, yeah, Ca, Mg, CO3, 2. So if you think about limestone, you could also call it Ca2, CO3, 2. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. If you just take one of the Cas and replace it with magnesium, you have Ca, Mg, CO3, 2. Right, so dolostone is generally...
Mg is +2. It's just pure Ca, Mg, CO3. There's no, Mg is +2 valence. Ca, CO3, and Mg, CO3.
Didn't
No, if you have one, you could say Ca.5 to balance it. CO3 is 2.
Oh, you're putting them both in there.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, if you had a half, as a chemically balanced statement, if it's, I'm not doing a comma.
I was doing it with the...
If you had a parentheses comma, yeah. 1-to-1 Ca, Mg.
So didn't dolostone form before like the calcite?
Dolostone forms as a modification of limestone if you can percolate magnesium through the limestone. So there had to have been a magnesium-rich layer above it. That magnesium gets carried by groundwater through the limestone, and it's like an alteration of limestone where it incorporates magnesium.
There are ways to deposit
really
dolostone,
obscure,
but it is not common.
abnormal.
Not common. Almost all dolostone is altered limestone. And so think about this being, 1,000 feet down with groundwater flowing through it, and the groundwater has high magnesium content. Some of that magnesium with a +2 valence is going to kick out the calcium with a +2 valence. So it just starts to, over time, replace it.
So dolostone has the magnesium, limestone doesn't.
Is that
Correct.
the chart?
But that's why I was saying, like with the parentheses, because anyone that's had mineralogy, you can think about the solid solution series where it's like a ratio of like iron to magnesium and all. You don't think about dolomite kind of the same way. Like it's just a ratio of calcium to magnesium. So if it's pure magnesium carbonate, which is possible, that is it's. Is that dolomite, or is it a different name?
Still Ca,
No, like MgCO3. If it was just
that's
pure
something else.
Okay. But if it was like, say, 5% calcium, 95% magnesium, you probably couldn't get it fixed. Okay, so the proportion of calcium to magnesium gives that fizz. Another example of how things don't fit really neatly is little packages like you get taught in intro classes.
They're very nice to display.
Everything kind of blurs. We like to put things in bins, but really it's a gradation. Yeah, like metamorphism is a great example.
That's what he said. Yeah, he's like, well, we showed you nice and dynamic Earth. It wasn't nice.
It's all a gradual.
Yeah.
Like a bin section. A really nice. I have a bin section.
Yeah.
Exactly know what it is.
Take what you hear with a grain of salt.
Look at the groundwork.
Oh, what'd you get over there? He was hitting it, and it chipped off and fell right on his coat.
Oh yeah.
There was way more room when we started doing it.
Yes. Jessica, if you want a piece, we can like try and give like another piece out.
Yeah, there's there's more in the bottom.
I do too.
I'm sure.
Like
I will.